Hello, and welcome to the Big Money Stylist Podcast, episode number 77.
Woo!
We're like 3/4 of the way to 100, and I'm very excited about that.
That's commitment.
We fucking did
That's
it.
consistency. And I will say we're still ranking in the top out of all the podcasts with the Warrior Empire and DKW and BMS. So, yeah.
Not that we like want to rub
Not that
it
we're
in,
bragging, but we are.
But if we were to be bragging, we'd be bragging. So tomorrow starts our mastermind event.
Yes, I know.
I'm so geeked.
Ooh, you know what? So AV Irvine, this is the first year we've done that there. And I've been really impressed. Like, it's like super bougie.
I like that there's a ton of space.
Yeah.
There's all the cameras, the lights that we need. Like I think I'm so used to not like me setting it up because I don't set up shit.
You know
but
what is so crazy? Like the normal hair class, and like not to knock on anybody, but like I've been to a few hair classes where I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like literally like somebody's sitting on my, it's so crammed in there.
It's the worst.
You can't see anything. Literally, they put like 50 to 100 chairs in like a regular size salon. You're like, what?
Oh, yeah.
Like a 10-person salon, you know?
Or the worst is when you have like a column or like a pole in front of you, you're like, I literally can't see. Or when they have like a stage, but it like curves and you're in that weird curve. Yeah, I've been clearly
At that point, it's just like, hey, it's all about who's and say you went to so-and-so's class. Like,
it's like you didn't even see anything.
You can't get a lot of value out of that. And the other thing that's crazy, I mean, I know most hair classes I'd say are like, what? Like, what's the going rate? $1,500 nowadays?
There's no way.
But still,
I feel like it's way less.
Is it? Okay, I don't know. But I'm saying some of the top hair classes are like $1,500. And
I would say that.
I'm sorry, but to pay $1,500 and sit where you're that crammed in is so ridiculous.
I would like to at least see what I'm doing. And I think that's why we've always had so many like cameras and TVs just so people could actually see what we're doing.
And it's only like, I don't know if it's just the hair industry, but like if you're going to put on a class or an event, like don't be a cheap asshole about it. Like, I don't know.
Well, it's funny actually. One of our trainers called me and she's moving salons and opening up a much, 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 much bigger salon.
Oh, wow.
And it already has like rooms built out. And that's why we had a conversation and she was like, what's my role in BMS coming in the future? She's like, I know we talked about it, but I just want like clarity. And I was like, and I just literally started laughing. And I was like, I just had a conversation with a team member about sending you like more equipment to like get things rolling. Yep. We're so excited. So many things are happening. Sweet. So going forward though, obviously last time we were here, I told you guys if you have any salon stories.
Like the stories.
I'm really digging the stories. I think they're funny. If you have any crazy, funny, what the fuck, even inspirational stories you want to share with us about the salon life, your career, anything like that, send them to Ani, A-N-I, at hairextensionsecret.com. And Danielle and I will be reading them live. Ha. Well, I guess not live.
But reading them.
We're doing it live, but not live at all. Yes. So I have a story here today, and I'm just going to begin with it. And it says, I used to work at a really busy salon on a college campus. The salon was very small, so small, in fact, that if you weren't careful, you would hit your head on the wall while trying to wipe your ass. Oh. As a tribute to this, there was always a color stain on the wall from someone hitting their head with color on their hair.
Oh, geez.
One time, a graduate...
No, that's bad.
Not great. I'm 5'1". If I hit my head on anything, it's made for midgets. Ooh. So one time, a graduate student brought in her mother and her 98-year-old grandmother. Oh. All three got haircuts and checked out, and at the very last moment, Granny decided that she needed to use the restroom before she left. Now, a little while had passed, and I went to use the restroom as she was coming out. She gave me this crazy-ass look and walked past me. It was enough of a strange interaction for me to pause and think, well, that was fucking weird. I continued in, shut the door, flipped on the light, and there it was, a giant pile of poop on the floor in front of the toilet.
Gross.
To add insult to injury, she stepped in it and tracked it all the way out of the salon.
It's not even like stepping in dog shit. She's like, I stepped in my own shit.
I stepped in human shit. I walked out of the restroom into the break room where some of the other girls were. And she said, guys, we have a problem. So after telling them all, I said, so we're going to rock, paper, scissors to clean this up, or are we going to have to call hazmat? Oh. So after a rousing game of not it, the only mom of the group says, oh, for God's sakes, and takes one for the team and cleans it up. Later that afternoon, we were all talking about it with one of our clients, having a good laugh, because what can you do at that point other than laugh? And that same mom said, you guys, that might be you one day. I said, listen, Becky, if I get to a point in my life where I'm shitting on the floor in the hair salon, my better days are behind me. So that is the story of the shittiest mindfuck that happened to me in the salon.
That's bad. You know what, though? I think when we first start doing hair, our standard of where we work is maybe like kind of low. I don't know. Like this funny stories always start out in like the beginning of your career. You know what I mean?
You want to hear something?
Yes.
Something like this happened in a salon I used to work at.
What?
The very, very, very first salon I worked at, like in St. Louis, there was this just super old grandma, and I guess she couldn't hold it. And I don't know if she like wasn't wearing underwear.
But you put Depends on.
But here's my thing. She was like walking to the bathroom, and there was like poop falling out. So I'm like, were you not wearing underwear?
No,
because that's a concern.
Maybe it just slipped right out.
And this is not to make fun of old people, but just a situation that you're literally like, what the fuck?
This is not something to do with hair, but like somebody I know was golfing, and she's older, and she was golfing with her golfing older buddy women, and they looked over and a tampon fell out on the green.
No.
Let's just say like things maybe loosen up when you get older, but they weren't that old. So I can only imagine if you're 98, you're like, oh, there's a turd on the floor. Like,
oh no.
I'm gonna like, when I get older, I'm gonna be like, stitch everything real tight.
You know, this is your last baby. Just have a talk with the doctor after you give birth.
Like, listen, put in an extra stitch for me. Come on.
Oh my God.
That's bad. That's pretty bad. Shitty on the floor.
I don't know what this podcast is about anymore. But
I don't either. I'm like, that tops it. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for joining us for 7 minutes about poop. Awesome. But you know what? It just goes to show like it happens. But that reminds me that tons of people, in case you don't know what I look like, I'm heavily tattooed. Like I have a ton of tattoos, almost a full sleeve.
She has a face tattoo, guys. Goes right up her neck.
I just choked. Just kidding. I do not have a face tattoo.
I don't think of you as heavily tattooed, but
I think for a woman I am, because my left arm is almost a full sleeve. I have a huge one on my right arm and a couple scattered ones around.
I never notice them, I guess.
Yeah, I don't either. But I have so many people that look at me and they're like, so what are you gonna do when you're old? I'm like, be grateful I'm alive. Honestly.
What are you going to do when you're old?
I don't know. It's
what
permanent.
What are you going to do when you're old? Oh, you mean with the tattoos?
Yeah, fuck you. How about that? Yeah, but oh my God, people never let that go. So
that's funny.
Thank you for joining us. Storytime here.
I have no tattoos.
You're going to get one.
I got my belly button pierced that I have a cute little scar from, but
same.
I don't really care. Like, it's not like I'm against tattoos. I just am like, I don't really care.
No, we talked about it last week. After baby Isla's born and you're all good to go, you're getting that one.
What one?
Remember the one we talked about with Garrett? The one.
Oh, the ring one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I can't commit to that.
Yeah, you can. I can give you 3 children. Yeah, and we can be married, but I will not commit to that tattoo.
No. My husband keeps losing his wedding ring, and he's like, I'm going to tattoo a ring on me. And I was like, I don't really care if you wear a ring or not, but if you want to tattoo a ring, that's great. And then Ani's like, you should get one with him. And I was like, I'm not that committed. Not to him, but to be getting a ring tattoo.
Garrett, please don't listen to the podcast. Danielle's fully committed, I promise you.
Okay, what's today's topic?
Today's topic brings me back to when I was little.
Oh.
And, growing up, you have your group of friends, and I swear, oh my God, we just had this conversation with your fucking kid, with Bailey, that who you surround yourself with.
True story.
Truly does dictate what kind of person you are.
And what direction you go.
Yes, and inside of business, like it dictates whether you're going to grow and progress and push through the ceiling and become someone new or regress and either just get worse or just never move, like 100%. And it's so funny because I was literally telling this to Danielle, 12-year-old. And I was like, Bailey, because Danielle was saying things about like the girls she hangs out with. And I was like, don't hang out with those fucking, I won't call 12-year-olds losers, but inappropriate little girls.
Like I remember being younger and like I had some shady friends like in junior high, and I think my mom kind of knew, and she's like, you can't hang out with them anymore. And I'm thinking like, how does she know? But literally, like I ended up changing groups of friends because like there was a few situations where I was like, oh, I don't want to like get into that kind of stuff. Like I was like, no, like that's crossing the line. And I ended up hanging out with new friends like in like 9th grade. And I swear to God, the old friends that I had, they ended up like having sex and doing drugs and dropping out of high school. And like it literally could like change the whole future. You know what I mean?
Do you want to know what's so crazy? And this might just be a testament to how hard-headed and or stubborn I am. Probably junior, senior high, all like the group that I hung out with, they had like just graduated, huge into drugs, like quite a few of them ended up being heroin addicts and like went to jail, but like they were massive partiers, crushing pills, all this kind of shit. I never did any of it.
That scares me. Like when it gets too far, I'm like, no.
Oh yeah, no. But I have been around. I will say I've never seen anyone shoot up anything. Like that's my limit. Yeah. But I've seen them do a lot of other crazy shit. Right. I never once participated. Like I never even smoked pot, honestly, until I moved to California. Oh. It's legal here. It's fine.
It's fine.
Don't worry about it. It's totally fine. But yeah, let's really talk about even. I think I just got a piece of glass in my hand from my phone.
What in the world?
I dropped my phone again. I just got a new screen and shattered it. Oh. It ripped a hole in my leggings. I scratched up the seat of my car. Again. I know. I put this on 3 days ago. The next day I broke it.
That's fine.
But that's fine. So there's glass in my hand. Don't worry about it.
They make covers for that. You know that, right?
That is a cover.
No, you need a case and a cover.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, thank you.
Okay.
It makes the phone too big.
Well, then keep cutting your hand.
It's only a little bit of glass.
You're just a little stubborn.
Shocker, right?
You know what's so funny is you and my daughter are both Aquarius, right?
Her birthday's the day before mine.
Yeah, and so it's so funny because I'll be like dealing with Bailey and I think like, what would Ani do? How should I should I ask Ani for coaching on this? Like I literally like it's so funny because like I don't know if it's like your personality, but you are a little bit stubborn, but then
oh yeah.
But then you have like this, like you have two different sides. You're like Jekyll and Hyde.
Which side are you going to get? You never know.
You never know.
You know, the day after I talked to Bailey, the next day she was actually my gratitude stack.
Oh.
Yeah. I was like, oh, this is
I think you calmed her down a little bit.
Did I? Yeah. I hope. I was like, talking to her, I'm like, oh, I get this kid. Like, I get you.
I know.
So, but really though, like even like think about in business, and I can speak for myself, like I've worked in a few different salons. I've even worked by myself. And I remember, and I feel like I've been having these like, oh my God, look where I came from moments. Not like, ew, but like, look where I started off. And even I was just pulling up the photos of like my first ever NBR client when I was solo and alone. And even the work that I was doing like right before I came to DKW versus now a year and a half later.
Right.
Vast difference.
I think I've worked in a studio, salon, suite, whatever also. Yeah. And it was great. And it was a great starting point for like doing my own thing. But I will agree, like when you're isolated in a bubble, there's only so much you're open to seeing. You know what I mean? Like you can't.
And you're by yourself.
Yeah, it's harder to grow, I would say.
Yes. Not only is there no one to give you feedback, which we've talked about 10,000 times in the importance of feedback and like learning to accept it and not being like an egotistical dick about everything. Right. But along with you don't really get inspiration from anybody else. Right. You're alone.
I think I'm better at hair owning a salon and working with people. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Because I hold myself to a high standard and then I expect results out of them. And it's like everybody can kind of grow together. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, 1,000%.
So even if you're the owner of a salon, like I would want you to consider that like working with other people, training other people, like I think it has upped my game because I refuse, because I feel like I'm setting an example, I refuse to let certain things slide. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, this is the goal. This is the target, like whatever it is.
Well, and then I feel that because you're surrounded by other people and hopefully other like-minded people, because I will say when I started doing NBR, not only was I in a suite alone, but then I was getting ragged on left and right because everybody was like, just teach me, show me, she'll never know. And I'm like, your morals and integrity are garbage and I won't be doing that, but whatever. But even being inside of a salon, it's like perfect example, DKW. Last week I was doing another artist client and the client just kept saying, I just want to be bright. I just want pops. I just want pops. I'm like, great. So I went through, her blonde was so beautiful. And she was like, she's like, I love it, but I don't love it. And I was like, okay, not a big deal. Like, what is it you don't like? Turns out she really wanted like balayage. She didn't want to be completely blonde. Yeah. So then I actually ended up sitting there talking with, it was Amanda. And I was like, okay, let's talk formulations for a minute, and just bouncing back and forth. Like it was amazing to have that. And then I learned something. Amanda learned something.
Sometimes clients don't really know what they want and they only know verbiage they've heard other people use. So they throw terms around like balayage or I want pops or I want to be smudged. And then they're like, I hate roots. And you're like, you just told me you wanted a smudge.
I jokingly told this client, I'm like, your name's not Stacey anymore. It's your name is Pop. Because she's just like, look. And then she would go, look how it pops now. Look at it pop.
Isn't that funny? And sometimes when they say pops, you literally could do like the money piece a little bolder. And they're like, yeah, like that.
Nailed it. I love it.
So you wanted more blonde around your face. So that's why it's so important to have like communication with the client. but also like be open-minded enough. It's good that at least she said like, hey, I love it, but I don't love it. Do you know what I mean?
And because I had told her, because we had talked a lot about like her hair history and like what had been going on. And I straight up told her, I said, look, I'm sure you can tell by talking to me within 5 minutes, I'm so incredibly hard to offend. I'm like, I do not want you.
Just tell me.
Yeah, I'm like, will not have you leaving the salon being like, it's okay. Yeah. I go, so honestly, I'm like, if there's something you want to jig, change, adjust, I'm like, tell me here now. Yeah. And I have all the time for you. It's not a problem. I think
there's like a fine line of putting like something in the client's head, like, do you like this piece? Like, you don't want to put something in their head, but if you can feel weird energy where you're like, I don't know, are they, you know when you're blowing it out and they're trying to peek in the mirror and they're looking already.
They keep touching and touching and touching and touching.
And you're like, that's usually when I'll address them and say, you know what, I think we should, before, like I even ask them, I'm like, you know what, I think this piece could be brighter, don't you think? And they're like, oh, I was just thinking that. I'm like, I know, you were looking in the mirror touching your bangs 75 times. You just told me.
Aware. Yeah. Don't worry.
But it's good to have like the frame control and being like, hey, like, do you like it? I think we should do this. What do you think? And then they're like, oh yeah.
There have been times where I'm like, you know what? I'm just not fully happy with this piece. I'll be right back. I'm going to mix up some more color. Yes. And I've never had a client upset about it. They're like, wow, thank you.
I think they love like the attention to detail. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Even if they don't notice it or they're like, oh, I think it's fine. You're like, fine's not good enough. And I know I'll feel better about it if I just go in. I one time called the client. I kid you not. It was a color correction. We were there forever. It was good considering like how she came in. Like her hair was like straight up Kelly Clarkson, like bleached out, like dark underneath. Like it was bad. And she wanted to be like blonde. And I mean, it was good, but her roots were a little warm. And I didn't say anything because she'd already been there for like 6 hours because it was good. And then literally 2 days later, I was like, I can't handle it. And I was like, I personally called her and I was like, hi, I did your hair and I want your roots to be darker. Can you come in?
Did she come back in?
Yeah, she was like, oh my God. She's like, I actually loved it. And I know sometimes like a color correction's a work in progress, but like I appreciate, I'd love to come back in. She's like, I was willing to wait, but yeah, I'd love to come back in. She came back in. She had her cute little dog. I like re-smudged her roots, but that's that's the kind of, I don't know. I take a lot of pride in my work, and I just feel like if I don't say something as a professional, like I don't feel like I'm doing my job. So I should have just stayed later and been like, can I smudge this darker? But I was more worried like, oh my God, she's been here for so long.
Right, for sure. Well, and that's the thing, though, that being inside of a salon, and I can even speak onto this as BMS, obviously, because we do hold a very high standard. And I've actually had so many of the artists that are attending BMS Con 4 message me, and they're like, I love the accountability inside of Mastermind. Like, how do I get in? And that's a really big thing because I've noticed that it's very, very hard for anyone to really hold themselves accountable 100% of the time. But then here's what happens. Artists will be like, oh, I wish I had a team. I wish someone held me accountable. Then they come onto the team and we hold them accountable.
And they don't like it.
And then they don't like it.
That's hard.
Yes. And it comes back to feedback, which we've talked about so many times. So I feel like we don't have to.
Anybody who's not open to feedback in my salon, they no longer work for me. Like, and it's not honestly, even like a one-time thing. If it's like a constant battle of like 6 months that I'm just like, stop defending your position. Be open to feedback. Like you have to be. You know what I mean? Like we can all learn and grow together. But if there's too much resistance, I get to this point where I'm like, I love you. You go do your thing. I'm going to do my thing. I've had things in the past that have ended ugly and not well, and I've taken accountability in that. And then I've had things that have ended medium. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And it's just kind of how it is. But if like I feel like DKW is really like the education. My passion is more in education. Like I think of us as an education company. Like
for sure.
I don't desire to run a 30-person chair salon. I just don't.
Baby Jesus.
I just don't. I think there's more money in education and more fulfillment for me. Like I like education way better. So for me, like when somebody's not open to feedback in my salon, I'm like, we're an education company. Bye-bye. You know? And you're commission based, you know?
Well, and here's the deal. Let it be known, we don't expect perfection.
Right.
Like, that's never what we're looking for. Even me, oh my gosh, perfect example. Because I'm like, I'll always throw myself under the bus. I don't care. Fuck, I got a new camera, right? And this was like months ago. And I was like, I'm nailing these pictures because I got a new camera. No, all of a sudden they were blurrier than, I feel like they were okay for a minute. And then they were blurrier.
You have camera issues.
Hey, I'm good now, though.
I know, because they were blurry.
Yeah, then they were blurry.
And then I was like, I swear to God, they look too warm.
And then I'm like, I don't know, because we had a photographer come into the salon. She worked with us on our cameras. I adjusted some of the settings. And then Danielle was like, Ani, your pictures are coming out really warm. I'm like, yeah, I know.
Well, because I knew the formula you used. And I was like, this other person used the same formula, but look at the difference side by side.
Well, I finally noticed it through the backdrop. I'm like, why does my backdrop look so fucking warm all the time?
Yeah, it looks brown or blue.
Yes. Yeah. And then so you and I had kind of gone back and forth, and I'm like, dude, I literally don't know what it could be. I finally checked my white balance, and I did what that fucking photographer said. And it was like some weird thing that never should have been, whatever. Yeah. So I finally got it back to normal. But that between me and you was not like it was never a battle. It was just like constant back and forth of like, I don't know, what could it be? But I always heard you and listened. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that's a difference that people need to understand. You can hear someone, but not listen to what they are saying.
Right.
And if you're not willing to listen, you're fucked.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting. So even like with the people inside of Mastermind now, because we had some at the beginning of the year that they were like, hey, I just want out. And we're like, not a big deal. Like, we still love you. You're amazing. Like, best of luck. And they've actually come back and been like, I lost a ton of money. I stopped doing all my marketing because I was like, fuck it, Coach.
Somebody to be accountable to.
Coach Ani can't yell at me anymore. Yeah. But that's what it is. It's hard to hear feedback. It's hard to not feel like the best.
Attacked or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. People will feel attacked. They'll feel insulted. They'll feel whatever. And then it's such a fucking ego thing where it's like, how dare you tell me about my work?
I would say that happens a lot. I know you're not married, Ani, but that happens a lot in marriage. I mean, I know you have a boyfriend, but you still are in the sweet spot. So.
Hopefully, at least.
I don't know. But like when you're married, it's funny because like I'll try to give Garrett feedback on things, but I come across like he did an event last week. He's like, my wife comes straight after the balls because I think you lose the filter when you're that close to him. You know what I mean? And I'll be like, what the fuck are you doing? Da-da-da-da-da. And I'll like think I'm giving him feedback, but I come across like right at the jugular.
Yep.
But it's so funny because even if I try to come across now nice, it's so hard, like, because we're in a relationship together. And so it's again like, okay, what do I want? Like, ultimately, like your ego, it's natural for your ego to be like triggered and offended. Mm-hmm. And I had a hard time too when Garrett would give me feedback or business advice. I'd be like, fuck you, you're not a hairdresser. Mm-hmm. And then I had to be like, okay, Danielle, like, and I've shared this on a ton of other podcasts. I always have to ask myself, like, okay, what is the desired outcome? Okay, the desired outcome is to produce more in business. The desired outcome is to help more people. The desired outcome is da-da-da-da-da. And then I'm like, all right, I might have to reel in my ego a little bit. And I don't want to say submit, but just kind of find a balance where you're like, I hear you. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then move to that point and allow. And I think everybody can get there, whether you're in a relationship, whether you're in like a group together, like whatever it is, you have to ask yourself, like, what did I sign up for? I had a girl recently in our mastermind. I was like, hey, can I give you feedback? Like we always ask like, because instead of just being like, hey, do this, this, and this, even though they signed up for education, we have to say, are you open to feedback? And I gave her some pointers on some photos and things like that. And she was just like, oh my God, thank you. You know? And so I think we have to remind ourselves, if you're signing up for education, you're signing up for feedback, you know, and you have to be open to it.
And that's honestly even a part of being a team. Yeah. Like you have to be okay with being a team. And I've said this 1,000 times, like the minute you think you're the best, the minute you think that you have nothing left to learn, look, let's be real. If you're that asshole who's sitting inside of a salon right now, whether you own it or not, and you're like, oh, I'm keeping this alive, I'm doing this, I'm the best, you're a fucking asshole. Yeah. And I guarantee you that someone in your salon, someone in your business is better at you doing something, and you just have your head so far up your own ass that you're not willing to hear anything from anybody else.
Well, and I like that you just said, like, it's a team. Like,
yes,
I get that I created the system, I built the brand, whatever, but I can't do it alone. Do you know what I mean?
For sure.
And there's such this balance in the salon life where, like, I feel like I can educate people, and I can also ask my team members for feedback. Hey, what would you formulate? What do you think? You know what I mean? And there's no judgment of feeling like, well, let me help you, honey. Like,
I've been doing hair for this long.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't care. I've been doing hair for like, I don't know, like 17 years now.
I love the quick math. You're like, add the one, carry the one.
Yeah. But I still, like, I'll ask some of my assistants that maybe been doing hair for like 6-7 years. I'm like, hey, what do you think? You know what I mean? There's this energy of nobody has like a big ego. It's just like, but the minute I feel that ego, I'm like, no, bye-bye. See you later, you know?
And not only that, then when you have a team that's so willing to support you and help you, you have to realize, and this is something that I've told my artists 1,000 times, My job is not to tell you what you want to hear.
Right.
I am not here as a trainer to blow smoke up your fucking ass every day and tell you, oh my gosh, that's so great, and then walk away.
Can't learn. Yeah.
You will never grow that way. That's not how it works. So being a part of a team, and I always say it's like the BMS family and the tribe and DKW, like part of this and being here inside of the culture that we have created is wanting to level up, being able to hear like, hey, this looks great, but jig and adjust this part, or add one more weft of hair, or hey, do you see this one little piece of hair? If you cut this, it's going to look 1,000 times better. That's what this is about. And the minute that you can't accept that, and it's fine, like I tell everybody, if you don't want to be here, don't. It's totally fine. And if you don't want to be in whatever business you're in, that's okay too. Go. But I'm going to have you go and consider, are you actually better off leaving?
Right.
And are you leaving because you're truly like, hey, my time is up. It's been amazing. Thank you. Or you're like, fuck you. I'm the best. I'm going to go do my own stuff because I'm so good.
And you know what? In a relationship, there's times where it's like both some are long-term, some are short-term, and it's better for both parties. And that's great. But how I measure result, or how I base, not success, how I measure growth is by results.
Yes.
Like and I've seen it in myself. Like if your work is not progressively getting better, if your business is not progressively getting better, guess what? Then you're not growing. So like you have to ask yourself even too, like if you're in some kind of education program, how open to feedback are you? Can you look at your results that you're having numbers wise and like just looking at your photos and say, oh my God, I'm so proud. I'm seeing improvement in not only my work, but also my income. Mm-hmm. And if you're not, it's not like you have to ask yourself, maybe I'm not being as open to feedback as I could be. You can't be like, oh, the program is fucking broken, because like, just like in a relationship, two people have to be willing to do the work.
Yes.
And we can only do so much if somebody doesn't come across the other way. And as a trainer, that's super frustrating for me, is when I'm like, I give somebody advice and I tell them, here's what I'd recommend. And then I see no progress. And I'm like, I can't help you if you don't want to help yourself. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I'm like, for me, I'm like, don't be in a program, don't pay for the tool or the system if you're not willing, not even just to do the work, if you're not willing to learn. Do you know what I mean? Like it just comes down to learning.
And that's really why, like I said, between DKW and BMS and like the tribe that we've built, everyone who's inside of BMS, going back to what we originally said this was about, is like who you surround yourself with. Everybody wants to grow. Everybody wants to progress. Everybody wants to be better.
Right.
And because of that, everybody does keep growing. Some go way faster than others. Some are a little bit slower. But the point is everybody moves forward, and that's what we're always looking for.
Right.
So sometimes when people, they're like, I got it. I'm the best. And they jump off the train all of a sudden, and then you can literally see them slow down, or their work all of a sudden you're like, what the hell happened to your work? It used to be beautiful, and now that looks insane because they're not even being held to the same standard anymore.
Right. Well, and I would say too, and I talked to you about this earlier, I was like, it's so crazy because inside of my salon, like I supply all the assistants, unlimited color, unlimited hair.
Oh, it's the best.
Like I have a full-time receptionist. Like I mean, you literally can come in, do your hair and leave. Not only that,
that's literally what we do.
We do the consultations, we collect the deposits. Like I want my artists to be able to just like be happy, and I schedule more than enough time. Like you're never like, oh my God, my next one's here. Like
we are not a factory of clients. No.
I try to create an experience that I would prefer to go to as myself, and I feel like I have pretty high standards with just like the experience in general.
For sure.
And so it's so funny, like when you don't allow your like self all these like little things, like your work can kind of go to the shitter.
For sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Because then at that point you have to understand you're just pumping yourself up, which is great. Yeah. You need to be able to jack yourself up. But if you've been patting yourself on the back for the past year, 6 months, and you've been like, I'm so good, I got this. Everyone can level up no matter what level you're currently at. Right. And let me also say, if you're one of these artists that you're like, damn it, I want more and I'm so unsupported, you might need to leave. Because I know some people currently right now inside of BMS Con 4 are facing this, even Mastermind, they're like, I want more. I've painted the vision. Like they can see the money they can make, and they're still not supporting me.
Right.
Now I'm going to have you consider those aren't the same people those are not the people with the same vision.
Right.
It's time for you to find like your own group. Yeah. No harm, no foul, no love lost.
And everybody has like their own path to growth. So the only thing, and I know we're kind of coming up to an end on the show, but the only thing I would encourage like artists out there is you have to measure your success based on your results, period. And if you feel like you're like not increase, if you truly look at your numbers and you're like, shit, I actually went down last year. Like I thought I was making more. I went off and did my own thing and I was like, oh, look at these numbers, but you don't include your expenses, your taxes, everything else. And you're like, shit, I took like a real hard cut this year. And you know what? My work maybe isn't as good as I wanted it to be or whatever it is. Like you have to be able to look at that and be like, okay, great. This is where I'm at, but how can I improve? And maybe you'll have a little more respect and appreciation for where you're at and what you need to do.
Yep, 1,000%. Anyway. So just take a look. Who are you surrounding yourself with? Because I know myself, whether it be Danielle, whether it be Garrett or Jeff, anyone at DKW, hell, even the artists at BMS, I always look at them and I'm like, I need to be better for them all the time. Yeah. Everyone around me is constantly pushing me to grow, to be more, do more, not like I don't work enough, but just hit the next level.
Well, you're held to like a high standard now because you're like, you're like a trainer. So I think that puts you in like a different box.
Oh yeah, and my 14 stacks last week, I nailed it. So we are coming to the end of the podcast. Unfortunately, I feel like I feel like I'm getting in like full on like event trainer mode now because I feel it. I'm so excited.
I feel like I'm getting in deliver baby mode. So it's good that
okay, we are 2 different modes right now.
That's okay. I'll be back. I keep telling everybody, I'm like by BMS Con, which is in November, I'll be back to my human self. Right now, I'm operating at like 65%.
You deliver a baby, I'll deliver an event. I feel like it'll be great. Don't worry.
I have 4 weeks left. Do you know that?
4 weeks. Shit.
4 weeks and I'll have a little baby. So that's where I'm at in life.
I'm so excited. So guys, thank you for being here today with us for the BMS podcast. And if you want to, well, you can't see us actually. We don't have video on this one. But if you want to read the show notes, you can always go to bigmoneystylistnow.com. And remember, send me your crazy, insane, whatever kind of stories. Or honestly, you can even DM me on Instagram. And we will see you guys next